Good afternoon, guys. It's Nick at Optima PS. Thanks again for coming back to my channel. I am eternally grateful to all those of you who do come back and listen to what I have to say, and to those of you who like and subscribe. If you do like what I say today, please do like and subscribe, because that really does work wonders with YouTube's algorithms and help to share my videos around the community. So hopefully you like what I have to say today. Today's topic: the SEC were always going to attack crypto. I just wanted to share my side of the fence, the story from my side, if you like. I've been in and around the finance world for a long time, and we were talking about this 10, 12 years ago when Bitcoin really first burst onto the scene and we started to look at things. So I'll get into that in a moment. As ever, just wanted to let you know I am a financial advisor, but of course, I'm not your financial advisor. So anything I say or do today shouldn't be taken as anything other than just me, a guy on the internet sharing my opinion. There's no financial advice whatsoever, so please don't take anything I say or do so as financial advice. It's just me trying to be helpful, sharing some thoughts, and letting you know what I think about the world at the moment. So we're in a funny time right now. Crypto prices are a little bit down on the day, but they've been up the past sort of week, so they're moving in the right direction. I do think we're going to see some big movement soon. But realistically speaking, we're looking at a case where the SEC is now coming out and attacking the crypto market. They've made a move against Ethereum, as I'm sure you're all aware. And in the early days, we thought Ethereum had been given that green pass, right? They actually came out and said Ethereum was not a security, and they're going after it anyway. In my opinion, the SEC, they're trying to create as much turmoil and unsettlement in the market as possible. I suspect they're doing so to help protect their buddies. We'll get onto that in more detail. Of course, I'm not allowed to say that out loud. The SEC are definitely not in bed with any of the big banks and institutions. But this is something we discussed years ago. So going back to, well, I'd have been working in Hong Kong at the time, I guess. We sat around and we discussed the fact that what we thought was going to be the biggest problem of the crypto industry was the SEC, the regulators around the world, the powers that be, on behalf of the big financial institutions who didn't want to lose their power. It's a threat to the major powers. We had big think tank conversations about this. A whole bunch of guys sat in the room discussing when crypto, 2013, 14, 15, it would have been, right? When it was first really beginning to make a name for itself. Tiny tremors out there in the market, barely registering on the Richter scale when it came to the financial world. Only guys like me, whose job it was and business it was to find new innovations when it came to the financial marketplace. We looked at these things before most people. Not the very, very earliest. We didn't look into it. I didn't buy Bitcoin or XRP or anything like that back in 2013. I actually did buy a bit of Bitcoin, but I sold it very quickly. But I wasn't in the job of buying and holding these coins back then. But we were looking into them as an innovative piece of technology, right? As something that may change the world. And even then, our big discussion was not, is this thing any good? Is blockchain really that innovative? We knew it was. We discussed all those things. But where we were focusing our attention was, more importantly, can this thing survive before it thrives? Will the powers that be let it survive, or will they attack it? Will it gain enough strength, enough momentum to swim against the huge tidal wave that we thought was going to be thrown at it by the powers that be, on behalf of their friends and buddies in the financial world, trying to keep that power in their clutches? We were looking at a situation where we knew the big banks were not going to want to allow a world where we could bypass them, boycott them, if you like. We could do everything that they do for us. We could store our wealth, we could transact our wealth, transfer our wealth, exchange our wealth without paying them a penny. This was never going to happen. I'm sorry, it was never going to happen. It's a lovely dream, it's a lovely idea, but they were always going to attack this, either to kill it completely or to hold it back up until such a point that they copied it, mimicked it, created their own, or up until such a point that they could still profiteer from this. And that was the conversation we were having. I remember sitting around at the time and we were talking about it being a bit like the movie Castaway. I don't know if you remember the movie. If you don't remember it, go and watch it. It's great. But Tom Hanks's character basically gets marooned on an island. I've got an image from it there. That there's a picture of Tom back stuck on the island. He befriended this volleyball he called Wilson, because he had no one else to talk to. And it was one of those things where it was a great movie, but the general theme was that his plane had crashed, he washed up on this island, and he found it incredibly hard to escape because the winds were blowing the tide back into the island. Those big waves, he couldn't get over them, and essentially he was stuck on this island for a number of years. Um, we talked about crypto being the same. Would they be able to escape this island with all the powers that be pushing back at every chance, trying to keep them where they were? And you'll if you watch the movie and see that it was impossible to escape in the early days, but he built a raft. He had some piece of corrugated steel wash up on the island that he managed to use to build a raft and eventually to escape the island. And that's a little bit what's happened to crypto. You know, we with no headwinds, with the waves coming against the island, or if the waves weren't there, forcing us back ashore, it would have been easy, and it would have been thriving within a few years. But with those waves and those headwinds that we sent there, it was really difficult. And in this analogy, the headwinds, if you like, are the big banks. They rendered that sail, the corrugated steel. It was useless. He was unable to get off because the winds were blowing him back onto the island. So he needed to wait for a change in the weather, and the waves that were crashing down, a bit like the SEC, acting on behalf of those headwinds, trying to make sure that no one could escape that island, and we had to continue using the big banks. I know it's an analogy, but stick with me, and the way we look at it is now we're moving forward. Those elements kind of are changing, right? The wind has changed direction. The big banks have realized that actually they can make money from this. In fact, they're probably going to end up making more money out of crypto than they've made out of the traditional financial space. I've talked about this before. We currently are in a system where they use Swift, and as much as you say about Swift, the simple fact of the matter is Swift charge the banks an amount of money for using their system, and the banks then charge their clients accordingly. I think what will happen is the banks will switch to crypto, which charges the banks an awful lot less, and they probably won't charge their clients any less. They're just going to extend their profit margin. And the banks are all getting on board with this now. And so the way the analogy works, the raft that he went and built, that's kind of the infrastructure we're seeing in place. People are starting to realize that this infrastructure is there now. It's building a raft to help us escape from the clutches of those big banks, but it's going to be done in a way with the banks blessing. The banks' headwind is going to turn into tailwinds, pushing us out over those waves. The SEC now still have to fight this fight. They're attacking everything inside. They were always going to. I think they've left it too late. They're slowing things down. They're pushing us back onto that island, but eventually they're going to have to give in because the banks are going to be on our side. And no matter how you look at it, the banks essentially what pay the SEC. I know it's the taxpayers, but we as the taxpayers pay the banks. The simple fact of the matter is the SEC will change their tune when it's in everyone's favor to do so. I'm not saying they're corrupt. I'm not saying they're being paid off. I'm just saying they currently are fighting against this, but they will change their tune. It will move the other way. I think I've got a there's Tom with his raft he's about to escape the island. Eventually he comes out. Here's the waves keeping him back, but he opens his sail. And if you watch the movie, he gets over and he escapes, and he eventually gets picked up by a boat, and goes on to live happily ever after, essentially. But where we are now, the banks are changing direction. The headwinds are moving. The ETFs and things like this are coming in. Collaborations with companies like Ripple, Stellar, Adira, Algorand, all these big banks, it's all starting to change direction. But we're going to see the SEC attackers lots more. I don't think it's going to be a smooth flight. I don't think it's going to be a smooth sail on the yacht, whatever the boat that we've managed to build to get off that island. We're moving forwards. But quite frankly, I think it's going to be a bumpy journey still. There's going to be lots of waves, lots of headwinds. We're going to be in a position where some people, like poor old Wilson, Tom's ball, it fell off the raft and he lost it. He went swimming after it. He couldn't quite get it. There's going to be lots of Wilsons on the way. People are going to get footed out of this market. People are going to look at the SEC saying, well, if the SEC, the main regulator in the US, is trying to go after all these coins, surely crypto's not a safe place to be. That's what they want you to think. Don't get lost along the way like Wilson. Make sure you're one of the people that survives. We're getting off this island. We're moving forwards. Crypto is going to be adopted by everyone. The SEC are just slowing it down until the market is ready, until the banks are ready, until everybody out there that pays their wages in one form or another are ready to let this thing go. We're getting there. So don't be footed out by the fact that the SEC are coming after crypto. They were always going to. This is something we looked at. I didn't get into crypto until such a time that I thought it was strong enough to survive whatever the powers that be threw at it. It's not only the SEC, by the way. In Europe, there's going to be new regulations coming in. They're more promising in Europe. They're more favourable towards the crypto sector. They're in a position where they're trying to embrace the adoption now, but with regulation. A, to make sure that investors are safe. B, to make sure they can continue to line their own pockets. C, to make sure they can tax it. They're going to make this more regulated, whether we like it or not. But that's a good thing in the end. Brad Garlinghouse will come out and say that it's a good thing that crypto is moving towards regulation, because regulation means mass adoption, and that's what we want. So where we are in the world is we are getting off this island, to use my analogy again. We're on our way out, but it's going to be bumpy. There's going to be winds. There's going to be waves. There's going to be all kinds of danger along the way. Don't get lost. Don't be Wilson. Make sure you survive. Make sure you get through this. Make sure we come out to the other side and we all get to live happily ever after. That's all I wanted to say today. I hope the analogy worked. I hope it made sense. It is difficult sometimes trying to get these things across, but where we are in the world, the crypto world is moving forwards now. The SEC attacking things is actually a good thing. I know that sounds crazy. I remember the Ethereum boys and how they all laughed at us, and they were glad when the SEC attacked XRP and Ripple. I'm not glad the SEC is going after Ethereum. I don't hold much. I own less than one Ethereum. I think it's about 10% of an Ethereum or something like that. I've never really been bothered about it. It had already moved too high before I wanted to pay any attention to it. I never really liked the setup anyway. But I don't want them to attack Ethereum. Plenty of you guys out there hold Ethereum, and it's bad for the market in general. But I think, to use one of those old sayings, that the night is darkest just before the dawn. I think that's the point we're at now. The SEC are attacking everything just before we get through to the other side and the sunrise is going to come through and save us all. We needed this moment. We needed the SEC to do all this because it was always going to happen. This is what we were talking about 10 years plus ago. We knew this was going to happen. We were in a position where we thought at the time crypto may not be strong enough to survive the initial onslaught. Now, when I look back, it was allowed to. I think they always knew this is the way the world was going to go. I think they were always going to allow us to adopt this in the grand scheme of things. And when I say us, I mean the financial industry. I don't think they intended this to be for us. Fortunately for them, the powers that be, only about 5% of the planet has ever even touched crypto investments. We are those new, unique, smart people at the cutting edge of the market because we've got into this. You are ahead of 95% of the planet. And I think we're a small portion that they will allow to get through the gaps and make a profit off this, because somebody's always going to make a profit. They're going to allow that to happen. Make sure it's you. Make sure it's you, because they are going to try their best to force you out. We've seen it with the Bitcoin ETFs now. Every time people sell their Bitcoin now, it gets gobbled up by BlackRock and the other big banks. The other issues that they're not giving that back. You may as well, as far as we're concerned, if you sell those bitcoins, you may as well be sending them to a dead wallet, because you're never going to profiteer from what we get. You'll make your profit this time. Hopefully, you've made some money, but you'll never get a chance to buy those back. The same will happen with all the other coins. I think the next step isn't going to be an Ethereum ETF or an XRP ETF. I think the next step is going to be a basket of cryptos ETF. I think that will be signed off. I might be wrong. They might sign off Ethereum. They might sign off XRP. I doubt they will sign off either whilst they're still in a lawsuit. XRP is a lot closer to the end, but there's a reasonable chance this might go on to High Court. Personally, I think there'll be a settlement, but I don't know. Neither side seems to be playing ball at the moment, but I think, Ripple coming up and offering 10 million or suggesting $10 million. They've gone incredibly low on purpose, because the SEC have gone incredibly high at 2 billion on purpose, and they're expecting the judge to offer some kind of split the baby type deal. So the SEC have said 2 billion, knowing that anything in between 0 and 2 billion ought to be a lot higher than something in between 0 and 100 million, 200 million. So they've gone high. They've gone ridiculously high on purpose. I think Ripple likewise have gone ridiculously low on purpose. I suspect the judge will draw the line somewhere towards Ripple's end rather than the SEC's end and offer some kind of split the baby, but within reason. I think it'll be $200 million. Ripple are adamant that no one was harmed by the sale of those tokens, so they would be every way in their right to demand this goes to High Court, to refuse to pay a penny. But I think there will come a sensible business decision at some point where they go, it's unfair, we shouldn't need to take this slap on the wrist, but hey, if we pay it today, we'll make more money tomorrow. We don't want to wait 18 months to prove how right we were and how above the law we were and how wonderful we were and how, legally we've always operated. That would be great, but the simple fact of the matter is, if we just take this on the chin, we'll be able to make more money tomorrow. We'll go forward. And I think that's the way it will go. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I've been in and around the sector for a long time. I've seen these things before. I think that's the way it will go. But either way, whether it goes in 18 months' time after a high court decision, whether it goes in the days' time when they agree a settlement, it doesn't really matter. It's going to go. It's going to go in the right direction. We're getting off that island. Be on the raft with me. That's what I have to say today. Guys, I hope you enjoyed what I said. I hope the analogy worked. Thanks very much for hearing me out. I'm always grateful for you to listen to me all the way through the video. If you did like what I had to say today, please do subscribe to the channel. Please do like the video. And hey, if you get a moment, please share me on Twitter, Instagram, whatever you use for your social media. That would be really well received. I'll be forever grateful. Thanks very much, guys. Have a great day. Speak soon. All the best.